So my name is Sidney Wheatley. I was born in Holland, but I've never really lived there. I lived in Bahrain most of my life, which is where I work now for His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdullah bin Hamad Al Khalifa, who is a member of the royal family in the Kingdom of Bahrain. And I manage his assets. So I'm his chief investment officer. And we look at all asset classes. So we look at manufacturing, we look at trading, we look at equities across the spectrum. These days, of course, a little bit less real estate, but hopefully that'll pick up again soon.
Have you seen a diversification in your sort of asset allocation during these times? Has there been a change?
Not really, to be honest, oddly enough. And that's just a function of we have full confidence that the whole situation around COVID is going to improve. I mean, it just doesn't have a choice but to improve. I mean, we can't just stay sheltered for the next 100 years. So that means that there's a lot of bargains on the market for people who have a long-term vision and horizon. It's painful right now. I mean, we have five-star hotels which just don't operate. So it's a little bit painful, but if you have a long-term horizon, it will definitely bounce back. And we are actually looking to acquire more of those kinds of assets rather than less. So it's actually more of an opportunity for us. We are expanding a little bit more into, let's say, the digital asset space, which is new for us because we're pretty old-fashioned as a family office. But it's exciting, and we'll see how that goes over the next 5 to 10 years.
And talking about mindset, could you give our viewers an understanding about what are sort of the mindsets of the family?
Well, the mindsets, so the most important thing for the family is reputation, more than money. I've literally walked away from deals that might have just had a small effect on the reputation of the family, and they'd rather not do it. Reputation, integrity, honesty, these are what are very important to the mindset of the family because they're there for the long term. We're not living quarter to quarter, we're living decade to decade. And when you live decade to decade, it's a different ballgame. You can't just go and make $10 million here off of someone's back. We're outstanding members of the community, we contribute a lot to the community. So it's important for us to maintain that level of reputation, integrity. I would say that's the mindset in terms of how we deal with our businesses. In terms of investing, we always want to add to the community, we always want to add to the economy. So whenever we bring something to Bahrain, we ask ourselves, is this adding to the country of Bahrain? Are we doing something good for society? You could say it's a form of impact investing, but it all stems out of, as I said, integrity and reputation. Like I said, we live decade to decade. And the people that we work with 10 years ago are the people that we work with today and will work with in the next 10 years. So if people know that you have integrity and that you deal with them fairly, they will bring you deals. They will bring you opportunities. They won't think twice about contacting you. So it helps us to expand our reach, not just in Bahrain, but around the world. So we have contacts all over the world who really enjoy dealing with our office for that reason. We might not always do the deal, but we always make sure that people leave our offices with a smile on their face, that they say, wow, it was a real pleasure to work with that team.
Why do you think it's important for international companies to invest in the region?
It's still a very young region. People look at pictures of Dubai and think, well, it's a complete city, but the region is still very young, and there's still so much opportunity. But the second reason is you're dealing now with, let's say, the third generation, let's say, of local families and people who have a different view of the world, right? Let's say the countries were built by the first generation, lived in by the second generation. Now the third generation has been to Harvard, MIT, they've studied in the Sorbonne, they've studied all over the world, and they want to expand the countries. They want to develop it even more. So there's a huge opportunity for international companies to come in and sell their products or develop their businesses.
And what about Bahrain? How's Bahrain looking like and evolving at this time?
It's very challenging for Bahrain for a few reasons. So the two main areas of income for Bahrain are tourism and oil and gas, which have been very hard hit. As you know, the oil and gas prices have been very low. Our main tourism is from Saudi Arabia, who have closed their borders with us since the pandemic started. So that's been very tough, honestly. But the government of Bahrain has supported every single business. They've paid on behalf of the business salaries of Bahrainis. They've paid electricity bills. They've waived all kinds of governmental fees. So they've really supported the local businesses. So if you think about it, in terms of a cycle, we're kind of here now. But we're here, and the businesses have not been so badly affected that they've had to go bankrupt because of the support of the government. So as we get out of it, I feel we're going to come back in a very strong way.
And tell me about the entrepreneurs in the region here that are really taking the path towards success, because we talked about how you in our virtual panels, the difference between losers and winners a bit in this time, right?
Sure.
So what are the entrepreneurs, the ones that are succeeding, what are they doing? I mean, what's their secret sauce?
Well, you'd have to ask yourself, what were they doing before the pandemic? And if before the pandemic they were wise with their, with their income, and they kept it in the company, and they continue to invest within the company, those are the companies that are still successful today. I'll give you an example. We have not had to let go of a single person, right? In spite of everything that's happened, because we had enough cash flow within the companies to just cover that. We didn't have to let anyone go because those people built the companies the last 10, 20 years. Why should they be let go because of a small dip in circumstances? And I think families that have that attitude, that long-term vision, they will continue to be successful. Those that, as I said, live quarter to quarter, whenever the money comes in, they take it out. Those are the companies that are struggling today. And when you struggle and you have to let go of those people that built the companies, that have the knowledge, that have everything needed to bring the companies forward when everything comes back, they will end up losing, I believe.
So long-term vision and having that human capital.
Having the human capital, keeping the human capital. The easiest thing to do is to fire someone. It's so easy. Getting that person back, or getting that level of talent back, getting that level of institutional knowledge back, that's hard. That requires much more investment. And I think when you have a short-sighted vision, that's what tends to happen.
Is that also what you look for, Sidney, when you look into partnering with another company or investing in another? Is it also the mindset of that company and also their long-term vision? Absolutely.
The companies that fail when they get acquired are where the culture clashes. You see it all the time in big corporations. An American company acquires a French company, and it just does not work because the cultures are so different. Right? So culture is really important, not just to our family office, but to everyone. But we would not be able to acquire a company that doesn't meet these criteria. And if it didn't, we would heavily impose that criteria upon them.
And also, you were just telling me also about how you grew up. You said that, you were born in Holland, but you basically grew up in Bahrain. You're this international, so you have this fantastic way of adapting yourself to different cultures, to different...
Yeah, I didn't have a choice because I came when I was 3, but there is really something to be said about having grown up in an international environment, because I went to international school, where I do really feel at home in a lot of places. And I really do believe it helps in business. I was born actually in a very small town in Holland, and I sometimes think about this. What if I'd stayed there? I don't think I would have ever moved out, because it's very comfortable and cozy, and you know your neighbors and things like that. But once you have sort of that exposure, I couldn't imagine, just living in a small town or just even being in one place. I mean, one thing the pandemic has shown me is that I actually enjoy traveling. I always thought I hated it. I actually really enjoy it.
And this international mindset that you have, obviously if you have it, then the family that you work for has it as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're always telling me, London is their second home. They spend half the year in Europe and half the year in the Middle East. So they absolutely not only enjoy being with other cultures, but they have an absolute respect for other cultures. Just that acceptance of the way other people do things. A respect for how people are, not imposing, how you want them to be. I've seen so many examples of the way they do this, and given their position, they don't have to, but because they do, I have a lot of respect for that mindset.
And what core values are they teaching their children and grandchildren to follow the path that, to implement those values that they
Sure. Well, on top of the ones we already mentioned, honesty, integrity, it's really hard work. So I'll give you a small anecdote about what I mean. When I started working for His Highness, I have a habit of starting at 8. Even though we usually start at 8:30, I like to come in early, read the newspaper, things like that. So I noticed that I come in at 8, he's already there, which I'm not used to, because usually I'm the first one in the office. So I said, okay, I'll start coming at 7:30. He's there. I said, okay, I'll start coming at 7. He's there. So I asked around, what time does he come? He said he comes in at 6. It's his habit to come in at 6 every day, exactly at 6. Because he loves to be at work. He enjoys working. He loves being in the office, reading the newspaper, updating himself, etc. And he's passed, I see him pass that on to his children, that sort of discipline. Even though it's not needed. When you're the big boss, you don't have to. But he absolutely makes sure of it. And I've seen him instill that in his children. So I think that life is short, and you should definitely do what you love to do. And I know that's easy, because I happen to do what I love to do. But I didn't always do this. I've worked a lot of jobs where I was very unhappy. I'll give you an example. I did a sales job. I am not a salesperson. I cannot stand doing sales and marketing. I hate it. So I came into what I do now because I absolutely love it. I'd never had the qualifications nor the experience. I grew into my role. And I think that life is too short to spend 8 hours or a third of your life doing something you don't absolutely love to do. If you hate your job, there are so many resources right now. You can get an education for free online, 100%. You can do distance work. You can work anywhere in the world. Especially with COVID now, it's so opened up. So definitely, if you don't like doing what you do, stop it. Go and find something that you love to do. In terms of intentionality, I think that it's very easy to get lost in numbers, in money, in millions here, millions there, or what have you. If your purpose is always to add value to the world, and your intention is to do that, I think you'll end up doing great things no matter what you do.